The Danish royal family is experiencing its most turbulent period in decades, and at the center of this unprecedented crisis stands King Frederik, a monarch whose reputation has plummeted so dramatically that palace insiders are calling it a royal catastrophe of epic proportions. While his wife Queen Mary continues to soar in popularity polls, capturing hearts across Denmark and beyond, Frederik finds himself trapped in a desperate spiral of increasingly questionable decisions that have left the Danish people questioning their king's judgment, competence, and fitness to rule. The shocking truth behind this royal power struggle reveals a man consumed by jealousy, making reckless choices that threaten to destroy not only his own legacy but potentially the very foundation of the Danish monarchy itself. What began as subtle competition has escalated into an all-out war for public affection, with Frederik employing tactics so controversial that even his closest advisors are reportedly questioning his mental state and decision-making capabilities. The crisis began brewing long before Frederik ascended to the throne, but it reached a boiling point when polling data revealed the devastating reality that would forever change the dynamics within Amalienborg Palace. Queen Mary, the Australian-born former marketing executive who captured hearts when she married into the Danish royal family, had achieved something unprecedented in modern Danish royal history. Her approval ratings had not only surpassed those of her husband but had reached stratospheric heights that made Frederik's numbers look absolutely pathetic by comparison. Sources within the palace, speaking on condition of anonymity due to the sensitive nature of these revelations, describe a king who became increasingly erratic and desperate as Mary's star continued to rise while his own reputation crumbled. The contrast could not have been more stark or more humiliating for a man who had spent his entire life preparing to be king, only to find himself overshadowed by his own wife at the moment of his greatest triumph. Mary's popularity stems from her genuine warmth, her tireless charitable work, and her ability to connect with ordinary Danes in ways that Frederik seemingly cannot. While she gracefully navigates public appearances with natural charisma and authentic emotion, Frederik often appears stiff, uncomfortable, and disconnected from the people he is supposed to serve. The Danish press has been particularly harsh, with headlines comparing the couple that range from unflattering to downright brutal in their assessment of the king's performance versus his queen's natural leadership abilities. The desperate measures Frederik has taken to boost his image have only served to make the situation worse, creating a cascade of public relations disasters that have palace communications teams working overtime to contain the damage. His decision to suddenly increase his public appearances backfired spectacularly when several events became notorious for his awkward interactions with citizens, his apparent discomfort in casual settings, and his inability to project the kind of authentic leadership that comes so naturally to Mary. Perhaps most shocking of all was Frederik's decision to embark on what palace insiders describe as a series of increasingly desperate publicity stunts designed to generate positive media coverage and boost his sagging approval ratings. These efforts, rather than rehabilitating his image, have instead highlighted his growing desperation and created even more negative headlines that paint him as a king more concerned with his own popularity than with serving his people effectively. The king's attempts to copy Mary's successful charitable initiatives have been particularly cringe-worthy, with critics noting that his sudden interest in causes that Mary has championed for years appears transparently opportunistic and self-serving. While Mary's advocacy work feels genuine and springs from deep personal conviction, Frederik's recent charitable endeavors seem calculated solely to generate positive press coverage, a distinction that has not been lost on the Danish media or the public. Even more troubling are reports of Frederik's behavior behind palace walls, where sources describe a man increasingly isolated from his advisors and family members, making unilateral decisions that contradict decades of royal protocol and common sense. His refusal to listen to experienced palace staff who have served the royal family for generations has created an atmosphere of chaos and uncertainty that threatens to undermine the stability and effectiveness of the entire monarchy. The situation became even more explosive when leaked documents revealed that Frederik had secretly commissioned multiple public relations firms to develop strategies for improving his image while simultaneously undermining Mary's popularity. These firms, according to the leaked materials, were tasked with finding ways to diminish Mary's public profile and redirect attention toward the king, a move that backfired spectacularly when news of these efforts reached the media and created a scandal that dominated headlines for weeks. The Danish people's reaction to these revelations has been swift and merciless, with public opinion polls showing Frederik's approval ratings dropping to historic lows while Mary's continue to climb. The contrast has become so pronounced that political commentators are openly discussing whether Denmark might be better served by a different approach to royal succession, a conversation that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Mary's response to this crisis has only further enhanced her reputation, as she has maintained her dignity and focus on her royal duties while refusing to engage in the petty political maneuvering that has consumed her husband. Her grace under pressure has been noted by international media outlets, with several prominent publications suggesting that she represents the future of modern monarchy while Frederik appears increasingly out of touch with contemporary expectations of royal leadership. The international implications of this royal crisis extend far beyond Denmark's borders, as the Danish royal family has traditionally been viewed as one of Europe's most stable and respected monarchies. The spectacle of a king so obviously struggling with his role while his wife excels at hers has become a source of fascination for royal watchers worldwide and has raised uncomfortable questions about the future of hereditary monarchy in an increasingly democratic world. Palace staff members, speaking anonymously to protect their positions, describe a working environment that has become increasingly toxic and dysfunctional as Frederik's desperation has grown. Decision-making processes that once ran smoothly have become chaotic, with the king overruling experienced advisors and implementing policies that seem designed more to generate headlines than to serve any meaningful purpose for the Danish people or the monarchy itself. The financial implications of Frederik's image rehabilitation efforts have also become a source of controversy, with reports suggesting that enormous sums from the royal budget have been diverted toward public relations campaigns and publicity stunts rather than the traditional royal duties and charitable work that Danes expect from their monarchy. This misallocation of resources has not gone unnoticed by taxpayers who fund the royal family's activities and expect their money to be used responsibly and effectively. Perhaps most damaging of all has been Frederik's apparent inability to recognize how his desperate actions are perceived by the public and the media. While Mary consistently demonstrates emotional intelligence and political savvy in her public role, Frederik seems completely disconnected from public opinion and unable to understand why his efforts to boost his popularity have had the opposite effect. This disconnect has raised serious questions about his fitness to serve as head of state and his ability to represent Denmark effectively on the international stage. The crisis has also exposed deep structural problems within the Danish royal family's approach to public relations and media management. While other European monarchies have successfully modernized their communications strategies and adapted to changing public expectations, the Danish system appears woefully unprepared to handle a situation where the king himself has become a liability rather than an asset to the institution he represents. Recent polling data has revealed the full extent of the damage to Frederik's reputation, with his approval ratings now lower than those of several controversial political figures and well below the minimum levels typically considered necessary for effective royal leadership. Meanwhile, Mary's numbers continue to climb, reaching heights that make her one of the most popular public figures in Danish history and creating an unprecedented situation where the Queen dramatically outshines the king in public esteem. The international media has begun to take notice of this remarkable reversal of traditional royal dynamics, with major publications around the world featuring stories about the Danish royal crisis and Mary's emergence as the real power and moral authority within the monarchy. These stories have only further damaged Frederik's reputation while enhancing Mary's status as a global icon of modern royal leadership. Behind the scenes, reports suggest that the relationship between Frederik and Mary has become increasingly strained as the pressure of public scrutiny and the king's desperate behavior have taken their toll on their marriage. While both continue to fulfill their public duties and maintain the appearance of unity, sources close to the royal family describe a couple struggling to manage the unprecedented challenges created by Frederik's reputation crisis and his increasingly erratic responses to it. The Danish parliament and government have thus far maintained their traditional respect for royal neutrality and avoided commenting directly on the crisis, but political insiders suggest that patience is wearing thin and that continued deterioration of the king's reputation could eventually force political leaders to address the situation more directly. The prospect of political intervention in royal affairs would represent an unprecedented development in modern Danish history and could have far-reaching consequences for the future of the monarchy. As this crisis continues to unfold, the contrast between Frederik's desperate flailing and Mary's steady competence has become impossible to ignore. While the king pursues increasingly questionable strategies to boost his popularity, the Queen continues to excel at the fundamental aspects of royal duty, connecting with people, supporting important causes, and representing Denmark with dignity and grace on the international stage. The tragedy of this situation is that Frederik's obsession with his own popularity has prevented him from recognizing and learning from his wife's natural talents and successful approach to royal leadership. Instead of working collaboratively to strengthen the monarchy and serve the Danish people more effectively, his jealousy and desperation have created a destructive dynamic that threatens to undermine everything the royal family is supposed to represent. The Danish people, meanwhile, have made their preferences clear through consistent polling data and public response to royal appearances. They have embraced Mary's authentic leadership style while rejecting Frederik's increasingly transparent attempts at image manipulation. This public judgment represents a fundamental shift in royal dynamics that may prove impossible to reverse, regardless of what desperate measures the king might attempt in the future. International royal experts have begun to suggest that the Danish situation represents a cautionary tale for other monarchies about the importance of authentic leadership and the dangers of allowing personal insecurities to interfere with royal duties. The contrast between Frederik's failure and Mary's success has become a case study in effective versus ineffective royal leadership that will likely be studied and referenced for years to come. The ultimate question facing the Danish royal family is whether Frederik can overcome his desperate need for popularity and focus instead on the fundamental duties of kingship, or whether his obsession with competing with Mary will continue to damage both his own reputation and the institution of monarchy itself. The early signs are not encouraging, as recent public appearances suggest that the king remains more focused on generating positive headlines than on serving his people effectively. As this extraordinary royal drama continues to unfold, one thing has become abundantly clear: Mary has emerged as the real leader within the Danish royal family, while Frederik's desperate attempts to boost his reputation have only highlighted his inadequacies as a monarch and as a leader. The Danish people have spoken through their overwhelming support for their queen and their growing skepticism about their king, creating a situation that challenges traditional assumptions about royal hierarchy and succession. The international implications of this crisis continue to reverberate through royal circles worldwide, as other monarchies watch nervously to see how the Danish situation resolves itself and what lessons might be learned from Frederik's catastrophic handling of his role as king. The contrast with Mary's stellar performance has made it impossible to ignore the fundamental questions about leadership, authenticity, and effectiveness that this crisis has raised. Will King Frederik finally recognize the futility of his desperate image rehabilitation efforts and focus instead on genuine service to his people? Or will his obsession with popularity continue to drive him toward even more questionable decisions that further damage his reputation and the Danish monarchy? The answer to this question may well determine not only Frederik's legacy but the future of royal leadership in Denmark and beyond. Don't forget to like this video if you found these royal revelations as shocking as we did. Subscribe to our channel for more exclusive royal news and insider information that you won't find anywhere else. Share this video with your friends who love royal drama, and comment below with your thoughts on this incredible power struggle between King Frederik and Queen Mary. What do you think the future holds for the Danish royal family?